Mental Health Mondays ignite the spark. Hope guides each step, even in the dark. New week, new dreams to see. Hope's the key to what's meant to be.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Hope. I am Hope. And thank you for joining us. I have my partner in crime here, my sister Amy Carpenter. Welcome. Thank you. Positive affirmation. I am
grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm grateful you're here. So today we're talking about quantum physics.
Sort of.
Oh, no, we're not talking about quantum physics. We're
close.
So, I teased everybody and I said, hey, I was hypnotized today and you're going to have to watch, tonight's podcast to find out why and what happened.
You got it. It's quantum healing hypnosis technique.
Right. And we'll scroll that name, across we'll pop up that name on the bottom of the screen. So you remember that. And I did put the name of Dolores and Julia Cannon up there. Because of Dolores, me learning from you, of really being the foremother of this.
Yes.
And Dolores, then her daughter carrying it on. But so before we get into all this hoopla, tell us what quantum
healing hypnosis technique was actually created by a woman named Dolores Cannon way back in the 60s and 70s as military people were coming back from the Vietnam War. They had anxiety and other issues related to war. And so they were starting to work with hypnosis when it comes to behavior modification, especially when it comes to mental health, anxiety, PTSD. And so she had started doing this practice and over time found out that you can not only do things like stop smoking or just small behavior modifications like that, but you can actually have a conversation with your subconscious mind. And so that's something that we did because that's what her research evolved to.
It's really interesting stuff. So, I asked you jokingly if you would make me cluck like a chicken.
Yeah, everyone
asks that. So it's not that type of hypnosis. It has like you're looking at, or you're working with through, I guess, various types of brain waves.
Yeah, absolutely. So all it is really a guided meditation. And so you are working with a person who's going to get you into a relaxed state so that you can possibly look at emotional triggers that cause physical issues, which is one of the biggest focuses for this type of meditation, this type of hypnosis. So there are many types of hypnosis. Everyone's probably heard of weight loss or the stop smoking. And, you get to different levels of relaxation when you look at the brainwaves, specifically the Dolores Cannon School of Thought teaches that when we are normally speaking, we have beta brainwaves. And don't ask me why this is, but when you get into a light hypnosis, it's alpha brainwaves. And that's equivalent to you watching TV or sitting there and staring at your phone, where you are looking at something, someone calls your name, and maybe you don't hear them right away. And so if we think about that, maybe we can get into a whole thing about commercials and and what happens when you're in that sort of state.
Yeah.
And so that is the state that they use for things like the anxiety modification. And when I say that anxiety modification, what they're doing is looking at maybe a specific event, and then they're trying to see it in a different way and sort of change the person's perspective. And so they don't have fear in that situation or whatever is causing the anxiety, and try and replace that specific memory. It's the same thing that happens when you're doing stop smoking. So stop smoking for people who have smoked. I never have, but people who have know that you're not just deciding to stop smoking cigarettes. You have to decide to stop smoking first thing in the morning, to stop smoking at your midday break, to stop smoking, after a meal. And so the behavior modification comes from you looking at each of those individual things and replacing it with something else. And so that's the first step in hypnosis. But with this technique, you actually go into a little bit deeper state of relaxation, and it has to do with theta brainwaves. And when you're asleep, just for reference, it's called delta, and you may have heard of it. If anyone does things like binaural beats,
Right.
or if you've just heard about brainwaves.
Sure. I listen to the Tibetan bowl, like the singing bowls, while I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
So
they tell you to listen to the delta brainwaves because that's the closest thing to when you're asleep.
Right.
And so what we worked with was the theta brain state, which is equivalent to right when you're about to fall asleep and you are starting to kind of doze off and you can no longer, hear the noises around you. Maybe you don't notice the blanket and you just are in that state every single day, at least at least twice when you wake up and when you fall asleep. But it's also the creative state for a lot of people. If they're, say, painting, or if you get into something where you just feel like you're in the flow, that's the theta brainwave state. And it's a pretty normal thing to happen. And so for hypnosis, it's sort of easy to guide someone into that state if they trust you and they can relax if they're willing.
Right. And that's it. You have to be a willing participant, and if you're negative about it going in, you're going to be more closed. You're going to be more closed off.
Yeah.
I was excited to do this. I was looking forward to it. And, people who have watched this podcast, Mental Health Mondays, you do know my history is that, I was molested as a child from the age of 4 to the age of 13. And I have difficulty remembering like positive thing, like having good memories, like the fun stuff and cool stuff that we did as kids. Our brother would be like, "Oh, hey, remember when?" And I'm like, nope. Because I feel that because of the trauma, I've blocked a lot of that out for our brain is amazing, and it's blocked a lot of that out. But unfortunately, it can't pick and choose, what to block and what not to block. So I've lost a lot of the memories that I wanted to have. And, I thought that maybe this would be a way to kind of unlock that door. And also, again, because of the, having that trauma that I did for as long as I did, and then for not talking about it, it ended at age 13, and I didn't really talk about it for another 2 to 3 years. And then it was like rush. And, and just go to go to court and this and that. And, and then having people question me, like adults that should be family and should, and then making me question myself. There's a lot of PTSD, and that goes into as an adult. I'm 58 and I'm divorced twice, and but I want to be in a relationship.
So
and this has all, like, all of my past and what have you has played a role in all of this. So so
this sort of trauma is something that people end up holding in their body.
Right.
And so with this type of hypnosis, you sort of look at that type of trauma and try to relate it to physical symptoms. And so it may be things like stress, and you feel it in your shoulders, and everyone knows that that's a place that you would feel things. And there are other things that are less common. I know that I personally had a hypnosis that I did a while ago where someone just kept clenching her body. And basically driving her elbow into her side, and she had a pain in her side that she couldn't figure out the reason. And so those are sort of things that you would expect. But if you look at the Dolores and Julia Cannon school of thought, there are specific things that trauma events that can happen that give you very specific physical symptoms.
Right.
And Julia Cannon has a whole book on it, and people can look at it if they want to. But
Right.
But the main thing is that you look at this trauma that someone has had, and you're able to, under that deeper meditative state, speak to them and bring it to the light. And if you bring it to the light, then a lot of times people will realize what they're holding. And sometimes they come out with homework to do, things that they should be thinking about or focusing on. And a lot of times they come out with new information that they didn't think about.
Right. And I have no problems. We can discuss my session. I'm okay with that. Because I think it was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm into things like this. I am a very spiritual person, and I see this as, operating on a higher level,
Yeah.
a higher plane, and having, a conversation with your unconscious
Yeah.
being. And that's where the truth lies.
Yeah. And in this type of hypnosis, the client or person that's being hypnotized comes up with a couple of questions, 10 to 15 questions to ask themselves. And this may be things that people do when they meditate and they just want to solve a problem or whatnot, but you get to kind of speed up the process because you're doing it all at one time. And the other thing, a very big thing that Dolores Cannon figured out back in the 60s and 70s, as she was going through and doing hypnosis, was that these military people, she would ask them to go to an appropriate time in their lives where there was anxiety. And suddenly they were going to times that did not make sense. And so she was one of the first people who started doing past life regressions. And so that is something that's part of this hypnosis, something that Hope did. And she went and saw 2 of her past lives. And then she was able to, or I was able to speak to her subconscious and ask why they had shown her those specific lives. And so she was able to learn from them. And then we went through and asked all of her questions and got some, answers.
Right.
I think a lot of them may have been things that you already knew, but maybe you don't want to say out loud. You don't want to tell yourself, and maybe a couple of things that were surprises.
Right. And, it was interesting. Like, I don't actually remember the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it, part of the process is recording it.
Yeah.
So that way the client or the individual being hypnotized can replay it and listen and pick out things, because maybe, something to the practitioner, like there's a difference here because Amy is my sister.
Yeah.
So she does, know more about my life. Now, if it weren't a sibling, but even you and I, we spent quite a long time talking today. So when you do this with someone that you don't know, like, what is the process before you actually get to the hypnosis part?
Yeah. So a lot of times it's someone that I've never met, or I've just only met briefly previously. And so we get together and we end up talking for 2 to 3 hours, and I hear someone's life story basically, and they get to a point where they are feeling more comfortable with telling me, a random stranger who is under a sort of expectation of a therapist. Although I'm not a therapist, but under the expectation that I will never say anything or share their information, which is of course my, ethical and legal side. Right. But they get to a point where they are more comfortable with sharing things that may be more traumatic. And once they get to that point, we, I feel like I have enough information on them, then I'm able to do the hypnosis, and they are relaxed enough with me and trust me so that they're able to get into that deeper state of relaxation.
Right, right. And if someone wasn't ready yet because maybe they didn't get to know you, well enough, or they're just apprehensive, they won't be able to.
No. Hypnosis is, you're never going to, the way I think of it is, you're never going to do anything that you wouldn't do when you were drunk.
Uh-oh, no.
But
in trouble.
But for hypnosis, you are in control the whole time, and it's a conversation that you're having. Now, Dolores Cannon, when she first started, they did not have this information that we have. Everyone seems to, everyone knows you have a conscious mind, a subconscious mind.
Right.
Back then, those were not things that were in the common information. And so there were many people who went through and were hypnotized, and they went into a deep state where they didn't remember, they didn't know what happened. And so that is a completely different thing than what happens today. Today, it's almost like you feel like you're making things up. And maybe you are, to be honest. I mean, if we're looking at, if you believe in past lives, then you may go to a past life. If you don't believe that, your subconscious may come up with a story related to a movie you saw when you were a kid, or a book that you read, and put you in as the character. The whole point is that they are showing you something that you need to know. And I have had clients who have gone to this life and gone to their childhood, and we've worked through some trauma based on just what happened in their childhood during the regression.
Right. And we really weren't in this lifetime at all.
No.
So it was rather interesting. The bits and pieces that I do remember, because I have not listened, to it yet, because we just did this. And the bits that we discussed afterwards were of 2 past lives where I was still a female.
Yeah.
And in the one life, I gave birth.
Yeah. You lost a child.
My child died after birth.
Yeah. And so.
And in the second one, I remember being, again, like, part of that one that I remember was she has you, like, she puts you in your place, she puts you in your place, in the place, like, where are you at, sort of thing. And then when you're in, like you described, let's say your home or wherever you're at, then, she puts you at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And who's there? Like, when you're sitting at your kitchen table, who do you see there with you? And I saw 2 children, and initially I felt like that there was a girl, and that there was also a boy, which I have a son and a daughter now, and my daughter's the oldest and my son is the youngest. And I felt like the daughter was older and that the son was younger. But then when I remember we were playing or something, and they were like the same age. So I feel like they were twins.
Yeah. At first you saw the girl and the boy you knew was there, but you didn't really, it didn't come into full focus.
Right. And that's it. Like, it's like sometimes things were like, they were gray. It's like, you're driving through fog, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the mountain, and, or you're down, down below the fog, and everything is clear again. It was fascinating. Yeah. It was absolutely fascinating.
And so you went through 2 lives, and the first one with the woman who had lost a child, who also was what we call a meat and potatoes sort of life. It's pretty much normal life. Hardly any of us are famous and on camera.
Right.
But she was a farmer who was very independent and strong. And so that was something that her hopes subconscious wanted to come through, that she was a very strong woman, even though she had this loss, and she was able to take care of herself and be independent. Right. And then the second life was actually a woman who was a speaker, and speaker meaning in conference halls or maybe a college, something like that, where she was sharing her story. And so Hope subconscious wanted her to see that making that connection and sharing her story is what helps other people to share their story. So she's done this before.
Right.
In
That's
a
crazy.
Previous
Huh?
life.
Yeah. I know I say crazy. I apologize. That's just my, like, term for everything. Yeah. It's cool. And it makes me think, like, first of all, why didn't I think of this sooner? You know what I mean? Like talking like about like not having doing the hypnosis, but like if this is something I did in a previous life, how come it didn't come to me sooner? As because that is actually my goal. It has always been, and I never really shared it because it's just like you don't think about like some things that are lofty. I've always wanted to be a motivational speaker.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, do we know that was a past life in the 1950s?
Right.
Or is it something that your subconscious showed you to let you know, hey,
right,
you can do this.
Right.
Your life, it paralleled your life now, but it was just in a different setting. You had 2 children. You were able to get up and go through that process of sharing your story with other people.
Right.
And so, do we know if it was a past life? No,
right.
We'll never know that. But is it something that you needed to see? Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But I had trauma in each lifetime.
Yeah. Yep.
There was losing the baby after birth in the first lifetime we visited. And I can't recall a time period. Did I share a time period with that
for the first one?
Yeah.
No, and you usually don't.
Okay.
Because that's the one thing during hypnosis is we talk about left brain, right brain. We know that your brain is connected all through, but you still have that stereotype of right brain being more creative, left being more analytical. And so during hypnosis, we're really looking at that more creative side.
Right.
And so if you get into the more analytical, talking about dates and things like that, it will bring you out of hypnosis.
Right. So, so maybe I said it incorrectly or wrong. Did I share anything that because I feel like I did, talk about like my describe things.
Yeah.
No describing. Nothing that described the time period.
I would have guessed maybe 1800s, not that long ago.
Right.
Because you described being in a cabin and having some modern amenity type things, but like a table and
right.
And you were getting together with your community and having a picnic.
As you're talking about, I'm remembering things that like there was like we were making stew. Making stew over the fire though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
I remember that part of
But being in a cabin, there was a wooded area, but there were mountains in the distance.
Right.
We have no idea where that is.
Right.
But,
and during each of these, Amy does a great job of walking you through everything, of getting you there and then bringing you out, very smoothly and unharmed or what have you. I don't know how to, to term it. But then also asking what I was meant or what your client, what they were meant to learn from that.
Yeah.
Like, why was that? Why was that the vision that came out? Like, why that?
Yeah.
And, and what they were to learn from that. And I thought that was really good and very relevant.
Yeah.
Very relevant. Now there was a situation during our reading, our session where I was supposed to be in one life, but I jumped. I call it, if people, I call it my Mary Chandra moment. But there's not a lot of people out there that know Mary Chandra, but some people will, and they'll get a giggle.
But you
I
jumped
to
a different life.
Into a different life. That was very
different situation kind of thing. But it was something that you had thought about and asked about before we started.
Right.
And so it sort of related.
So do you think it was just because it was something that we talked about that, do you think it was just coming in, like when you see like those mediums I'm having them tell me blah, 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 blah. So they know it's, so they know it's that person. Do you think it was somehow my subconscious mind telling me that, yes, those questions that you had about this, that was true?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That makes sense now.
And I think if we had done a third, regression that we may have gone to that
Right,
life
right.
that you were talking about. And your subconscious sometimes can be very impatient and try and give information when you're finally listening.
Right.
Is what they say. So
right.
many times when I'm doing this and I'm asking questions, I hear a lot of, I wish that she would just listen to us. Yeah.
So then we did. So like we finished the past life, like they were past life. That's what my subconscious was showing.
Yeah.
And then Amy spoke directly to my higher power.
It did.
And and it did answer some questions. So why are we doing this show on Mental Health Mondays? Because all of this that we did was related to mental health, to my mental health. Yeah. And I'm sure to your clients' mental health as well as their physical health
and spiritual health.
And of course, spiritual health.
And so the big focus on this type of hypnosis is definitely looking at emotional trauma and mental issues, trauma, your thought process, and seeing how that relates to your physical issues.
Right.
And so a lot of people that come to me actually have a lot of health issues, and that's why they're coming.
Right.
They want to know the root of why they have different health issues.
Right. Right. And throughout this process you do some like meditation and to get into that relaxed state, and then you also work through the chakras as a way to help with physical healing. So this is something that the client has to be open to, and not everyone is.
Well, and if they aren't open to that type of thing, then I use a different type of meditation. So something that's more tailored to them. And it makes it a little bit easier for them. And so I sort of can do a little bit of picking and choosing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you all, you're watching and, you hear like Amy's tone of voice is very soothing, and, her air, her aura around her is a very peaceful calm. It's very calm and soothing. And I feel that again, because I know you, it's different. But I feel that because of this, which, I'm a bit of an energy reader, that people probably feel very comfortable with you and relaxed with you.
Yeah. I'm one of those people that people tell their life stories to in the grocery line.
Sure. Yeah. You're an empath. Yes.
Yeah. So I do get that a lot, or I get people asking for advice in random places. So it could be complete life advice, but yeah. And so I kind of found this in, sort of in that way,
right?
Because I've been told that I have that type of voice that can keep people calm. And I mean, teaching middle school is
you have to stay calm.
Yeah.
Now I know like people watching this, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to have what Hope had. I want to do that, but you live in California.
Yeah. And it's only in person.
So I would like you to heed that if you're watching this. I'm not saying, because, I'm not as familiar. I'm just learning about this myself. And we've already turned on somebody new to it that, potentially wants to become a practitioner. This is something to only be done in person. And I don't know if there are, like people that are just learning or what have you that might say, yeah, I can do it, over Zoom or over the phone. Yeah. That is a no.
Yeah. The Dolores Cannon School is, quantum QHHT, practitioners can only do it in person. That was something that she had always said. Now there are other things out there. There's similar things, and they do them over Zoom, and that's fine. It used to be that because people were in such a deep state of hypnosis and may not even know what's going on around them, that it wasn't a good idea. But our spiritual consciousness has risen so high in the past few decades that it's a little bit easier. Now, if you were on Zoom doing this with someone and not QHHT, but something similar, and you got disconnected, you would just sit up and you might, be a little bit tired, but, but that's it. So, but if you want to do the healing hypnosis, which is the Dolores Cannon method, then that is definitely in person.
Right.
And there is a website with practitioners, and so definitely go with someone who is a certified practitioner. You don't want to go with anyone who's not on the list.
On the list. Okay, great
Yeah.
advice. And I do have to tell you, I mean, without going into, like a whole bunch about the session,
Mhm.
that I did find it very helpful. And we did talk about like paths to healing.
Yeah.
And what was really great to hear was that with some things I'm already on track. And that's always positive to hear that when it's coming from your
Mhm.
subconscious. I know
Mhm.
that sounds weird.
Mhm.
But that was good to know, because sometimes I wonder what's going on underneath, and I feel that
Mhm.
getting that boost of confidence was very, very helpful for my healing and my mental health. And I want to say thank you. And
Mhm.
it's quantum healing
hypnosis
hypnosis
technique.
technique, quantum healing hypnosis technique,
We call it QHHT to make it easier.
QHHT, by
Mhm.
Dolores Cannon, and her daughter Julia now
Mhm.
continues this process,
You got it.
and Amy Carpenter also continues
If
this
you're
process.
in Northern California,
And
then
she's also a
that's where
Reiki
I
master.
practice.
So
I am.
So I thank
Usui
you.
and Holy Fire Reiki.
Nice.
Yeah.
I thank you for not making me cluck like a chicken. I'm kidding. No, I thank you for teaching me this,
Mhm.
and for doing this with me.
Yeah.
And for all the good that you're doing for other people that really are open to this and are looking for,
Mhm.
alternative methods
Yes,
to heal.
absolutely.
So-
I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And maybe I'll follow up we'll do a follow-up on this, and we can, after I listen, and we can talk further about we'll go more in depth about my session.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you so
Mhm.
much again for coming, and thank you for watching. And
Mhm.
remember, like and subscribe to the PA Empowerment Network. My name is Hope. This is Mental Health Mondays with Hope. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.